There's a door in your house you never realized was open. Not physically, spiritually. Feast day of St. Pio of Pietrelcina, that door can be sealed forever. Something most Catholics don't. Something about houses, about doors, about how evil finds its quietest paths into our lives. I'm going to tell you a story that changed everything I thought about spiritual protection. A story that began in a home just like yours. In 1962, lived in torment. Every night, the same thing. Objects moving on their own. Whispers from nowhere. The constant feeling that something was watching them. They tried everything. Blessings, holy water, group prayers. Nothing worked. Till someone told them something strange. Something about Padre Pio. Something about a rosary hung on the main entrance. Have you ever stopped to think why your house sometimes feels heavy? Why on certain nights you feel you're not alone? Why some rooms feel colder, darker than others? Padre Pio understood this better than any other saint. He saw. He knew that houses aren't just structures of brick and cement. They're energy fields. They're spiritual fortresses, or portals to what shouldn't enter. The American family followed the advice. On September 23rd, the feast day of St. Pio, they hung a blessed rosary on their main entrance. Not just any rosary, a rosary that had touched a relic of Padre Pio. That very night, for the first time in months, they slept in peace. Total silence, as if an invisible barrier had been raised around the entire house. But why specifically the door? Why the rosary? And why on Padre Pio's day? I'll explain something few know. When St. Pio was alive, he received letters from people all over the world. People reporting strange phenomena in their homes. Apparitions, malignant presences, spiritual attacks during sleep. Padre Pio always gave the same advice. Always. Protect the main entrance of the house, because he knew that evil, like angels, needs permission to enter. And that permission, most of the time, is granted unconsciously through the main door. The door is the portal. The rosary is the key. Padre Pio's day is the moment of maximum spiritual power. Do you know why Padre Pio had the stigmata? Why he bled in his hands and feet like Christ? Because he was constantly in spiritual battle. He saw what you don't see. He fought against what you don't realize is fighting against you. And one of the most powerful weapons in that battle wasn't complex. It was simple. It was a rosary hung in the right place, at the right time, with right intention. But pay attention. It's not just any rosary. It's not just any door. It's not just any day. It has to be a rosary blessed by a priest. Preferably, a rosary that has already been used in prayer. A rosary that has absorbed intentions of faith, of supplication, of protection. It has to be hung on the main door of the house, not an interior door, not a window. The door that separates the outside world from your family's sanctuary. And it has to be on September 23rd, or at least on a nearby date, because the spiritual energy of a saint is more intense on the days dedicated to him. It's when the veil between heaven and earth becomes thinner. I'll tell you what really happens when you do this. What happens on the plane you can't see. When you hang the rosary on the door on Padre Pio's day, you're not just making a symbolic gesture. You're creating a spiritual seal, an energy barrier that works like a filter. Think of it this way. Your house has an aura. Just as you have an aura, your house does too. And this aura can be pure or contaminated. It can be luminous or dark. It can attract good or allow evil to enter. The rosary on the door acts as a purifier of this aura. It creates a field of protection that repels negative energies and attracts the presence of guardian angels. Padre Pio, during his blessed rosaries specifically for the protection of homes. He knew that the family is the core of Christian society. Protecting the family means protecting the home where it dwells. But here's the secret that few know. The rosary on the door doesn't work alone. It works in conjunction with the faith of the one who hangs it. It works in conjunction with the prayers that are made inside that house. It's as if the rosary were an antenna that picks up the prayers from inside the house and amplifies them to heaven. At the same time, it picks up the blessings from heaven and directs them into the house. I'll tell you about Mary, a 67-year-old woman who lives in New York. She wrote to me telling me her experience. Years of suffering from insomnia, constant nightmares, and a feeling of oppression at home, she decided to follow this tradition. September 23rd of last year, she hung her mother's rosary, who had died 2 years earlier, on a rosary that had been blessed by Padre Pio personally. During a pilgrimage her mother made to Italy in the 60s, Mary told me that on the first night, she felt something different, as if a heavy presence had left the house, as if she could breathe more easily, as if the rooms had become brighter, even in the dark. 3 days later, she started having different dreams. Dreams of light, dreams of Padre Pio, who appeared as a protector at the door of her house, preventing shadows from entering. 6 months later, Mary says her house has completely transformed, not just spiritually, but even physically. The plants started growing more. The colors seemed more vibrant. The people who visited commented on the peace they felt when they entered. But why does this work so well, specifically with Padre Pio? Padre Pio had a unique gift among the saints. He had the gift of bilocation. He could be in 2 places at the same time. There are hundreds of documented accounts of people who saw him appear in distant places, offering protection, comfort, or spiritual guidance. This gift did not die with him. Even after his death, millions of people around the world report apparitions, dreams, and signs of Padre Pio, as if he continued to carry out his mission of spiritual protection for those who invoke him. When you hang a rosary on the door on his day, you are, in a way, inviting this protective presence into your home. You are saying, Padre Pio, I trust you to protect my family. And he answers. He always answers. But pay attention to a crucial detail. The rosary needs to be hung with reverence. It cannot be a mechanical gesture. It must be accompanied by a prayer, by a clear intention. There's a door in your house you never realized was open. Not physically, spiritually. And today, on the feast day of St. Pio of Pietrelcina, that door can be sealed forever. Padre Pio knew something most Catholics don't. Something about homes, about doors, about how evil finds its quietest paths into our lives. I'm going to tell you a story that changed everything I thought about spiritual protection. A story that began in a home just like yours. This is a story of faith, protection, and the enduring power of Padre Pio. This is a story about a specific request for protection. The most traditional prayer for this moment is simple. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, protector of families, seal this home against all evil. May this rosary be a barrier of light against darkness. May no malignant force find entry here. Amen. You can repeat this prayer 3 times, one for each person of the Holy Trinity. Or you can speak with your own words from the bottom of your heart. The important thing is the sincerity of your intention, Now, I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. This ritual isn't a new tradition. It has existed for centuries, passed down through generations of Catholic family. Finances flow better. It's not superstition. It's spiritual cause and effect. Padre Pio knew this. That's why he guided people not only to pray, but to create sacred spaces in their homes. Environments that fostered the presence of God and repelled the presence of evil. Rosary at the door is one of the most effective ways to create this sacred space. I'm gonna warn you about something important. After you hang the rosary on the door, it's possible that in the first few days, you might feel some strange things happening. Some people report more intense dreams. Others feel as if the house is cleaning itself, as if heavy energies are being expelled. Some even notice strange noises or sensations of movement. Don't be alarmed. This is normal. It's part of the process of spiritual purification. It's as if your house is being detoxified from negative influences that have been there for a long time. This phase usually lasts between 3 and 7 days. After that comes peace that Mary experienced. The peace that countless families around the world have experienced. A peace you can physically feel, as if your home breathes better, as if every room has become more welcoming, as if you can finally completely relax within your own home. Let me tell you about another remarkable case. John, a 45-year-old businessman from Austin, Texas. He was going through a very difficult time. Businesses in crisis, marriage in crisis, rebellious teenage children, and a constant feeling that everything was going wrong. He wasn't very religious, but his mother was a devout follower of Padre Pio. She insisted that he try the rosary on the door ritual. More out of desperation than faith, he agreed. On September 23rd, they hung John's grandmother's rosary on the main entrance of the house together. An old rosary, made of dark wood that had belonged to the family for 3 generations. John told me he didn't expect anything. But 3 days later, something started to change. First, it was his wife. She stopped arguing about small things. Then it was the children. They started talking to him more, instead of just arguing. A week later, a client who had canceled a large contract contacted him again, saying he had changed his mind. 2 weeks later, John received a business proposal that solved all his financial problems. Coincidence? John doesn't think so. He says he felt a change in the energy of his house from the moment the rosary was hung, as if a heavy cloud had dissipated. Today, 2 years later, John is a fervent devotee of Padre Pio. He says that rosary on the door saved not only his home, but his entire family. And the most interesting thing, the rosary remains there, hung on the same door. John says he will never take it down because he knows that it's not just an object, it's a spiritual shield. But pay attention to a detail that many people ignore. The rosary on the door works best when accompanied by other spiritual habits within the home. Praying the rosary at least once a week inside the house, reading the Bible regularly as a family, saying prayers before meals, blessing the house with holy water once a month. All of this creates a stronger protective environment. The rosary on the door is like the main lock, but a well-protected house has several layers of security. Padre Pio always said, "Prayer is the best weapon we have. It is the key that opens God's heart." The rosary on the door is a way to keep that prayer active 24 hours a day, even when you're sleeping. It's as if your house is praying for itself, protecting itself continuously. constantly attracting blessings. Now, let me tell you about an aspect that few people know about this ritual. The aspect of guardian angels. When you place a blessed rosary on the door of your house on Padre Pio's day, you are not only creating a barrier against evil, you are also creating a beacon for good. Angels are drawn to sacred. They are drawn to symbols of faith. They are drawn to homes where God is respected. The rosary on the door acts as a luminous signal on the spiritual plane, a signal that tells the guardian angels, this is a house of faith. This family is under divine protection. Respond. They establish a permanent guard around that house. They create a protective fence that repels not only negative spiritual influences, but also physical dangers. How many times have you heard stories of people who narrowly escaped accidents, who were warned in dreams, who felt a strong intuition not to leave the house on a certain day, thus avoiding a problem? This isn't luck. This is angelic protection in action. And this protection intensifies when your house is spiritually sealed through rituals like the one with the rosary on the door. I'll tell you a story that still chills me to this day. Anna, a 38-year-old nurse from Denver, Colorado, recounted her experience to me. She had hung the rosary on the door on Padre Pio's day, following the tradition she learned from her grandmother. 3 months later, on a December morning, she woke up startled by a very vivid dream. In the dream, she saw Padre Pio standing at the door of her house, making a gesture as if he were preventing someone from entering. He repeated, "Not today. Not this house." Anna woke up at 3 a.m. and couldn't sleep anymore. At 6 a.m., she turned on the television and saw the news. During the night, a gang had invaded several homes in her neighborhood. Every house on her street except hers. Coincidence? Anna is certain it wasn't. She believes Padre Pio protected her home that night. Rosary on the door was the conduit of that protection. Stories like this are more common than you might imagine. People who have discovered in practice the real power of spiritual protection through the teachings of Padre Pio. But why specifically the rosary? Why not a crucifix? Why not a saint's image? The rosary has a unique spiritual energy. Each bead represents a prayer. Each mystery represents a moment in the lives of Jesus and Mary. When you pray the rosary, you are creating a chain of protection through the repetition of powerful prayers. This energy becomes imprinted on the object itself. A rosary, used regularly in prayer, becomes an object charged with spiritual power. When you hang it on your door, that energy remains active, creating a permanent field of protection. Padre Pio had a special devotion to the rosary. He said the rosary was his weapon against Satan. He always carried a rosary in his hands, even when celebrating Mass or hearing confession. When he advised people to protect their homes, he always recommended the rosary as the first recourse, because he knew that Our Lady has special power over demons, and the rosary is the most powerful Marian prayer that exists. That's why it works so well in protecting homes. Because Mary is the mother of Jesus, but she is also the mother of all families. She has a special fondness for protecting Christian families. When you hang the rosary on your door, you are placing your home under Mary's mantle. You are saying, "Mother, protect my family as you protected Jesus." And she answers. She always answers. Now, perhaps you're wondering, but can I do this even if I'm not very religious? Even if I have doubts about my faith? The answer is yes. In fact, it's often the person who is in a crisis of faith who most needs this protection. It's precisely the person who is going through difficulties who benefits most from this ritual. Faith doesn't need to be perfect to work. Faith can be small, doubtful, full of questions. What's important is the opening of the heart, the willingness to try, the humility to acknowledge that there are forces greater than you in the universe. Padre Pio received many people like that. People in crisis, people who were unbelievers, people who were desperate. And he always said the same thing: begin with a small gesture of faith. God will do the rest. The rosary on the door is exactly that. A small gesture of faith, a gesture that can transform everything. You don't need to understand how it works. You don't need to believe 100%. You just need to try. I'm going to tell you now about something that will completely change your perspective on this ritual. Something about the secret history behind this tradition. For centuries, long before Padre Pio was born, there existed in Europe a secret religious order. Not secret in a malicious sense, but reserved. An order of monks who dedicated themselves exclusively to the spiritual protection of Christian families. They were called the Guardians of the Sacred Home, and they developed techniques of spiritual protection that were passed down orally through generations. Techniques that were never written in books, lest they fall into the wrong hands. One of these techniques was precisely the ritual of the rosary on the door. They did it in an even more powerful way. They didn't just hang the rosary, they consecrated it through a specific ceremony. Padre Pio was a child in Italy. He came into contact with one of these monks, a very old man who visited his family when Pio was only 12 years old. This monk taught young Francesco, Padre Pio's baptismal name, the secrets of family spiritual protection. That's where Padre Pio's wisdom about protecting homes came from. It wasn't just divine inspiration. It was also knowledge transmitted by a millennial tradition of spiritual warrior saints. And now I'm going to teach you exactly how to perform this consecration, how to transform an ordinary rosary into a powerful spiritual shield. First, you need to choose the right rosary. It can't be just any rosary. It needs to be a rosary that has meaning for you. It could be a rosary you received as a gift. It could be a family rosary, inherited from a loved one. It could be a rosary you bought specifically for this purpose. The material matters. Wooden rosaries have a more natural energy, more connected with the earth. Metal rosaries have a more protective, more warrior-like energy. Stone rosaries have a more lasting, more stable energy. Most important thing is not the material, it's the intention with which you choose. Second, you need to purify the rosary. Consecration. This is fundamental. An unpurified rosary can carry the energies of other people who have touched it, or the energies of the environment. Purification is simple, but it must be done carefully. You can place the rosary in a bowl of holy water for 24 hours, or you can leave it exposed to the full moonlight for or you can burn frankincense incense around it for 15 minutes. Choose the method that resonates most with you. The important thing is that after the purification, the rosary is energetically clean, ready to receive the consecration. Third, you need to choose the right time for the consecration. Ideally, it should be on September 23rd, the feast day of Padre Pio. If you can't do it on that date, it can be on any Friday in September. Friday because it was the day Jesus died on the cross, a day of special spiritual power. The time also matters. The best time is between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. This is the time of greatest angelic activity. It's when the veil between heaven and earth is thinnest. It's when your prayers have the most power. Fourth, the location of the consecration. It has to be inside your home, but not just anywhere. It has to be in the most sacred place in your home. It could be a prayer corner. Could be in front of a saint's image. It could simply be the place where you usually do your personal prayers. The important thing is that it's a place where you feel spiritually connected, a place where you feel the presence of God more intensely. Now I'm going to teach you the exact words of the consecration. These are the words that the guardian monks used. These are the words that Padre Pio learned and passed on to a few special people during his life. Hold the rosary in both hands, close to your heart. Close your eyes and breathe deeply 3 times. Feel the energy of the rosary pulsating between your hands. Say, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, warrior of Christ, protector of families. Through your intercession, I consecrate this rosary as a spiritual shield for my home. May each bead be a living prayer. May each mystery be a fortress against evil. May the energy of the Blessed Virgin Mary dwell in this sacred object. May the angels of God keep watch around it. May no force of darkness penetrate the protection it offers. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Repeat this prayer 3 times. With each repetition, visualize a golden light emanating from your heart and enveloping the rosary. Visualize this light growing until it forms a luminous shield around the rosary. After the 3rd repetition, kiss the crucifix of the rosary and say, I am sealed by God's protection. Done. Your rosary is consecrated. Now it is no longer a common object. It is an instrument of spiritual power. But be warned, from the moment of consecration, this rosary becomes sacred. It can no longer be touched by just anyone. Only you and the members of your family may handle it. If an outsider touches the rosary, it loses some of its power and needs to be purified again. Now comes the moment to hang it on the door. But it's not just hanging it. It's a ritual in itself. First, choose the exact location on the door where the rosary will be hung. It must be on the inside of the door. It must be at a height that is visible to those entering the house, but not too conspicuous to visitors. Ideally, it should be at the top of the door, slightly to the right. To the right, because it is the side of the elect, according to Christian tradition. To the right, because it is the side of active protection. Before hanging the rosary, say a prayer at the door. Place your right hand on the wood of the door and say, Door of my house, entrance to my home. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. May you be a portal only for good. May you be a barrier against all evil. May the angels of God stand sentinel in this place. Amen. Only then hang the rosary. The moment you place it on the door, visualize a barrier of light forming around the entire house. Visualize this barrier rising to the ceiling and descending to the floor, creating a complete dome of protection. Say the final words of the ritual. It is sealed. It is protected. It is blessed. Now your home is spiritually shielded. Let me tell you something that few know. The ritual doesn't end here. In fact, it's only just beginning. Because from now on, you need to keep the energy of the rosary always active. How to do this? Simple. Once a week, preferably on Friday, you should pray a complete rosary in front of the door where the rosary is hung. It doesn't have to be a long rosary. It can be just one mystery, 5 Hail Marys, and 1 Our Father. The important thing is to maintain an energetic connection between you, the rosary, and the spiritual protection of your home. And once a month, you should sprinkle holy water on the door where the rosary is. This renews the consecration and strengthens the protection. Now, I'll tell you about the signs that prove the ritual is working, because many people perform the ritual but don't know how to recognize the results. First sign is the most obvious. The feeling of peace within the home. A peace you can feel physically, as if the air became lighter, as if you could breathe more deeply, as if every room had become more welcoming. Second sign is dreams. After you hang the consecrated rosary on the door, it's common to have calmer dreams. Dreams of light, dreams of angels, dreams of saints, and a significant decrease in nightmares. The third sign is family harmony. Arguments decrease. Discussions become less intense. Family members feel more united, closer. It's as if the rosary creates a field of harmony within the home. The fourth sign is protection against external problems. Fewer illnesses in the family, fewer accidents, fewer unexpected financial problems, fewer unwanted visitors. It's as if the house becomes shielded against negative energies from outside. The fifth sign, and perhaps the most impressive, is synchronicity. Good things that start happening without apparent explanation. Opportunities that arise out of nowhere. Beneficial people who enter your life. Solutions that appear for old problems. Let me tell you about Sarah, a 72-year-old retired teacher from New York City. She performed the complete consecrated rosary ritual 3 years ago. Results were so impressive that she became a missionary of this tradition. Sarah lived alone after she became widowed. The house always had a heavy energy, especially after her husband died. She felt strange presences, especially at night. She heard footsteps in the hallway when no one was there. She felt as if someone was watching her while she slept. In addition, she was facing serious financial problems. Her pension didn't cover all the expenses. The house needed urgent repairs, and she was getting sick frequently, spending a lot on doctors and medicines. When a friend taught her the consecrated rosary ritual, Sarah decided to try it. She was desperate and open to anything that could help. Sarah did exactly as I taught you. She chose her mother's rosary, which had been stored away for years. She purified it with holy water. She consecrated it in the early morning hours of September 23rd. She hung it on the door with all reverence. The results started the same day. On the first night, Sarah slept soundly for the first time in months. No strange noises, no feeling of presence. Just peace. A week later, a neighbor she barely knew knocked on the door, offering to make minor repairs to the house for free. He said he felt like helping, without knowing why. A month later, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. It was a lawyer informing her that she had been a beneficiary of her husband's life insurance that she didn't even know existed, an amount sufficient to solve all her financial problems. 3 months later, Sarah met a group of ladies from the church who became her best friends. She came out of isolation and resumed an active social life. Today, 3 years later, Sarah says her life has been completely transformed, not only by spiritual protection, but by a series of blessings that began to flow into her life after she sealed her home. She always says, "That rosary on the door didn't just protect my house, it opened the gates of heaven to my life." But let me tell you about an even deeper aspect of this ritual. There's a powerful legacy you can leave your children and grandchildren. A spiritual inheritance. It's about more than just protecting your family today. It's about creating a sacred tradition that will endure for generations. When you consecrate a rosary and hang it on your front door, you're not just protecting your immediate family, you're establishing a spiritual lineage. This consecrated rosary becomes a sacred heirloom. When your children start families of their own, they can carry on this tradition. They can use the same rosary, or consecrate new ones, following the same ritual. And the spiritual protection multiplies. Each protected home strengthens the protection of others. It's like creating a network of spiritually shielded homes, a bulwark against the unseen. Padre Pio always said the family is the core of Christian society, and that protecting families is protecting the world. You perform this ritual, you are just safeguarding your home. You're contributing to a safer, more spiritually secure world. Now I'm going to share something that Guardian monks practiced, a practice that few know today: the annual renewal ritual. Once a year, on September 23rd, you must renew the Rosary's consecration. You don't need to remove it from the door. You renew it while it hangs there. The renewal is simple, yet powerful. Place both hands towards the Rosary without touching it and say, "Saint Pio of Pietrelcina, for another year, this Rosary has protected our home. For another year, it has been a shield against evil. I now renew its consecration. I renew its strength. I renew its protection. May it continue to be our spiritual fortress for another year. Amen." Then you recite 1 Our Father and 3 Hail Marys, and it's renewed. This renewal is crucial because throughout the year, the Rosary absorbs negative energy, trying to penetrate the home. It becomes spiritually worn. Soldier in battle. Annual renewal completely restores its protective power. Now let's discuss instances where the ritual might not work as expected, because it's vital to understand that there are right ways and wrong ways to do this. The ritual may fail if performed with complete disbelief. If you do it merely to test it, to see if it works, without any heartfelt opening, you likely won't see significant results. Faith, even if small, is essential. The ritual might fail if the home is heavily spiritually burdened. In cases of intense paranormal activity, the Rosary alone may not suffice. In such situations, a complete spiritual cleansing of the home is advisable before hanging the Rosary. The ritual can fail if not properly maintained. If you hang the Rosary and then completely forget about it, never pray, never perform the monthly and annual renewals, the protection will weaken over time. Ritual may fail if there are individuals in the house practicing rituals from other religions that conflict with Christian energy. In this case, you need to address this family spiritual issue first before implementing the Rosary's protection. But in the vast majority of cases, when done correctly and sincerely, the ritual works, and it works impressively. I'll share a personal experience that made me fully understand this ritual's power. 5 years ago, I was going through a very difficult period. Family problems, health issues, financial struggles, and a constant feeling that something was wrong in my home. I would wake up tired, even after 8 hours of sleep. I had frequent nightmares. I felt an inexplicable tension in the house. My children would get angry for no reason. My wife and I would argue over insignificant things. That's when an elderly woman, a devout follower of Padre Pio, taught me this ritual. She told me the story of the Guardian monks. She explained step by step how to perform the consecration, and gifted me an old wooden rosary that had belonged to her mother. I was skeptical, but I was desperate. I decided to try. I did exactly as she instructed. I purified the rosary with holy water. I waited until September 23rd. I woke up at 4 a.m. I performed the complete consecration. I hung the rosary on the door with all reverence. The results started the same week. First, It was my sleep. I started sleeping soundly again. The nightmares vanished. I woke up rested and energized. And it was the family atmosphere. Arguments decreased dramatically. My children became calmer. My wife smiled more often. Within a month, a job opportunity appeared out of nowhere, resolving my financial problems. In 3 months, a health problem I'd had for years resolved without medical explanation. Today, 5 years later, that rosary remains hanging on the same door, and our home continues to be an oasis of peace and protection. But the most impressive thing wasn't just the practical results. It was the spiritual transformation it brought to my life. I became more connected with God, more grateful, more aware of the divine presence in my daily life. The rosary on the door didn't just change my house, it changed my soul. And that's what happens too. Most people who perform this ritual sincerely, they discover that spiritual protection isn't just about warding off evil. It's also about attracting good, about opening channels for God's blessings to flow more freely into their lives. Now, I'll give you some important practical guidelines on living with the consecrated rosary on your door. First, always treat it with reverence. Remember, it's no longer an ordinary object. It's a sacred instrument. When you pass by it, you can make the sign of the cross or simply touch it with affection and gratitude. Second, keep the door always clean and well-maintained. The door where the rosary hangs becomes a sacred place in your home. It should be treated with the same respect you would give a church altar. Third, observe the synchronicities. Pay attention to the small miracles that begin to happen in your life after the ritual. Keep a spiritual journal where you record these blessings. This strengthens your faith and gratitude. Fourth, share the tradition with trusted individuals. When you see the results in your own life, feel free to teach the ritual to close family and friends who might benefit. And fifth, always maintain humility. Remember, the protection comes from God through the intercession of Padre Pio and Our Lady. The rosary is merely an instrument. The power comes from above. Before concluding, I want to tell you about a prophetic aspect of this ritual, something to do with the times we are living in. Many mystics and saints prophesied that we would reach a time of great spiritual tribulation. There was a time when the forces of evil were more active, a time when Christian families needed special protection. Signs are everywhere. Increasing violence, the deterioration of family values, widespread spiritual confusion, the feeling that something is terribly wrong in the world. It's no coincidence that traditions like placing a blessed rosary on the front door are being right now. It's as if God is providing special tools of protection for these special times we are living through. Padre Pio, even after his death, continues his mission to protect Christian families. And the rosary on the door is one of the main weapons in this spiritual battle. When you perform this ritual, you are not just protecting your home. You are allying yourself with the forces of good in a war far greater than you can imagine. You are contributing to the ultimate victory of light over darkness. So don't delay. If you felt something touch your heart during this conversation, if you felt this resonates with your life, act now. Don't wait until September 23rd. You can start purifying a rosary today. You can start choosing which rosary you will use. You can start preparing your heart for the ritual, because your home deserves protection. Your family deserves protection, and you deserve to live in peace. The rosary on the door is more than a ritual. It's an act of faith. It's a declaration that you trust in God to protect what you love most. It's a way of saying, Lord, I place my family in your hands. And God answers. He always answers. Perhaps you still have doubts. Perhaps you think this is superstition. Perhaps you think it won't work for you. What if it does work? What if your life is transformed as the lives of thousands who have already experienced this ritual have been? What if your home truly becomes a little piece of heaven on earth? You have much to gain and nothing to lose by trying, because in the end, what you're doing is simply hanging a rosary on your door. Blessed Rosary, with faith, with reverence, with the pure intention of protecting those you love. And if there's even a small chance that this truly works, that Padre Pio truly extends his protection over your home, that Our Lady truly covers your family with her mantle, isn't it worth trying? I believe so. And if you've come this far, if you've listened to this entire story, if something in your heart is whispering that this could be true, then perhaps you believe too. Your home is waiting to be sealed. Your family is waiting to be protected. And Saint Pio of Pietrelcina is waiting to extend his powerful hand over your home. The rosary on the door is the key. Faith is the strength, and the love of God is the guarantee that everything will be all right. So be it.